I'm the chairman of the Road Commission, and it's, by my clock, time to start our meeting. And we have some housekeeping details that we need to cover because we're having this meeting virtually. Number one, if you would like to make a public comment during this meeting, we will prompt you at the appropriate time in the agenda to virtually raise your hand. If you are viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click Join Audio. You can then raise your hand virtually by clicking the Participants button at the bottom of your screen, and then the Raise Hand button at the bottom right of your screen. Just 1 second while I'm speaking of housekeeping details. If you dialed into the meeting from your touch-tone phone, you can raise your hand virtually by pressing *9. Once we get to the public comment section on the agenda, we will unmute participants with raised hands one at a time. The chat feature on this Zoom meeting is available only as technical support for users on their computer or smartphone. If you are experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, submit a comment in the chat feature and our systems administrator will help you troubleshoot. The audio and video of this meeting is being recorded. A link to the video will be posted to wcroads.org in the coming days. Today's meeting agenda is posted on wcroads.org, and there is a link available in the chat if you are joining us from your computer. The meeting is now called to order, and I'm going to start that meeting with a roll call of attendance. Again, I'm currently speaking is Doug Fuller is myself. I'm the chair of the board. Is Vice Chair Barb Fuller with us?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Green?
Here.
Commissioner Yamas?
Present.
Commissioner McCollum?
Present.
Managing Director Siddell?
Present.
County Highway Engineer, Mr. McDonnell?
Here.
Director of Operations, Mr. Harmon?
Present.
Director of Finance and IT, Mr. Ackerman?
Here.
Thank you. The board and the senior staff are here and present. It is our standard practice to begin our board meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Since we are hosting this meeting virtually today, instead of the pledge, we will start this meeting with a moment of silence to honor all those helping to battle the virus and for those who have been killed by this terrible disease. Thank you. Next on the agenda is next on our agenda is the approval of today's agenda. And I do believe that we have an addition that's going to be proposed. Commissioner Fuller, do you have such an addition?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I do. I would like to add to action items a discussion about the road commissioner appointed to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. That's going to actually require a roll call vote of all the commissioners. The chair votes yes. Commissioner Fuller?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas?
Yes.
Commissioner McCollum?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We will make that addition to the under new business action items, which is B, which currently has 2 items there. That will become item number 3. Okay, and with that, I would like to have a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of the agenda as presented with the amendment.
Support.
I have a motion and support. Again, this requires a roll call vote. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes. So now we have an agenda. Moving on that agenda, the next item will be consideration of the board minutes of June the 16th, 2020, which starts in everyone's board packet on page number 1. Are there any comments about those minutes, corrections that anybody feels necessary?
No.
Staff?
No.
Okay. Again, I'd ask for a roll call vote on the acceptance of those minutes as presented. Could I have a motion, please?
I move acceptance of the meeting minutes of June 16th, 2020 as presented.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
and Doug Fuller votes yes. So those minutes have been accepted. Then starting on page 13 of your packet are the working session minutes of June the 16th, 2020. Could I have a motion to accept them as presented, and then we can ask, well, let's do it the other way. Are there any suggested corrections, deletions that find necessary, additions that we should be making to those working session minutes?
I have no
Hearing none.
comments.
Okay, hearing none, I would like to have a motion to accept the working session minutes.
A motion to accept the working session minutes of June 16, 2020.
Thank you. I've got a motion and support. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
and Doug Fuller votes yes. Thank you. Moving forward, we arrive at public comment. And this is the time that we set aside on the agenda to receive comments from the public. This is not intended to be a period for dialogue. Each person will be allocated 3 minutes to address the board. Does the meeting administrator have anyone that would like to raise their hand?
At this time, Commissioner, I do not, but let me run through the instructions just one more time. In
Sure.
order to make public comment, we ask that you virtually raise your hand. If you're viewing this meeting on your computer, you can do that by first clicking Join Audio, and then you can raise your hand by clicking the Participants button at the bottom of your screen, and then the Raise Hand button at the bottom right of your screen. If you dialed into the meeting from your touch-tone phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. And I will unmute those one at a time who have their hands virtually raised. Commissioner Fuller, at this time, there is no one with a hand raised.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Actually, we just had one.
right.
I'm going to unmute Jean. Go ahead. You are unmuted and you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Jean Hagan, and I'm a resident of Scioto Township. I contacted my township supervisor, Jack Knowles, and he recommended I attend this meeting. I am interested, I live on a dead-end dirt street in the township, and I am interested in what the process would be to designate this street as no parking.
Oh, okay. Jean, this is Doug Fuller speaking. Jean, would you mind sharing the name of the street?
It is Elizabeth Road. It's off of
Oh.
Wagner
I
between.
know Elizabeth. Yep.
Okay.
All righty.
The reason for my request, our road is fairly narrow. I live close to the mouth of the street. And when cars park on the street, it turns it into a one-way at that point. And I just am concerned about safety on the street to a certain degree.
Okay. Gene, what I'd like to do is have our managing director, Cheryl Siddell, contact you. If you'll leave your contact information, and she will either herself or designate somebody from the commission to meet with you if you would like to and talk to you about the procedures that are necessary.
That sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Sure. Do we have your contact information, Gene?
I do not believe so.
Jean, if you want to, you can share it with the host in the chat, and that can just be a private message between you and me as the host, and I can share that with our managing director.
Okay.
The chat feature is available at the bottom of your screen. If you click, there's a little
And-
thought bubble.
I do see that. So you are Emily?
I'm
Correct?
Emily, yep.
All right.
Thank you. I'm gonna mute you again, Jean. Is there anybody else that would like to make public comment? Commissioner Fuller, I don't see any other raised hands at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move from that on to written communications, which starts on page 17 and continues for usual number of pages. I noticed, and I would like to draw my fellow commissioners' attention to the motion of support that for the millage renewal and replacement from the city of Dexter. I personally sent a note thanking the mayor for the action that his board took. And I also see now that our managing director, on behalf of the entire commission, has sent a note to the city of Dexter, thanking them for their support for that millage. That was the only one of the written communications that caught my attention. Are there other commissioners that would like to discuss something that they saw in written communications? Hearing none, I think we'll move on. Commissioner and staff follow-up to public comment, I hope has been being dealt with, since we had one public comment, and I do believe Emily is making necessary arrangements with Ms. Hagan. So moving forward to new business brings us to the consent agenda. Could I have a motion on that, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of the consent agenda as presented.
Could I have some support?
Second.
Support.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. Those in favor can vote aye. And we'll start with Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Aye.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Aye.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Aye.
Commissioner Joanne McCullum,
Aye.
and Commissioner Doug Fuller votes aye. Thank you all. That brings us to B under new business. And there are 3 action items that we need to consider. 2 of them are right-of-way acquisitions on Wagner Road. Does everybody find those in their packets?
Yes.
I'm turning the pages. There we go. Could I have a motion so that we can consider these devices? Action item parcel 1 on Wagner Road South Safety Project.
Doug, I'm sorry, what page did you say that was on?
Page 40.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that upon the recommendation of the County Highway Engineer, Director of Engineering, and concurrence of the Managing Director, the board hereby approves the acquisition of a 0.46 acre or 1,995 square foot public road easement and a 0.021 acre or 931 square foot grading permit from the owners Soon Keng Cha and Kimberly Cha upon a parcel of property commonly known as vacant Wagner Road, Lodi Township, Michigan, being on the west side of Wagner Road, south of Waters Road, and referred to as tax parcel number M-13-11-100-015 in the amount of $1,425 and installation of a field access drive, and further directs the chair and managing director to execute the counteroffer to the good faith offer of just compensation as presented.
Thank you.
I support.
Thank you. Discussions, questions?
I do have some questions. The acquisition may be slightly different. I have 0.036 acres or 1569 square foot of public road easement and
Gloria?
0.029. Yes,
We're gonna move up on the page. You're looking at the right of way for parcel 2. The
okay.
motion is about parcel 1.
Oh, okay, very good. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
So no more questions. I was looking at
Okay.
the page 41 and awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's fine. Hearing no more questions, I will ask for a roll call vote. Commissioner Fuller, as in
Yes.
Barb. Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas,
Yes,
Commissioner McCollum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes as well. So that acquisition has been approved. The second one sounds very similar. Is the description is on page 40 and the proposed motion is on page 41. So could someone make the motion for parcel 2, please?
so Chair, I motion that upon the recommendation of the County Highway Engineering Director of Engineering and concurrence of the Managing Director, the board hereby approve the acquisition of 0.036 acres or 1,569 square foot public road easements and a 0.029 acre or 1,245 square foot grading permit from the owners of Sajukin Cha and Jackie Cha upon a parcel of property commonly known as vacant SWC Wagner Road at Waters Road, Lodi Township, and referred to as tax parcel number M-13-11-100-014. The amount of the $3,387 and further directs the chair and the managing director to execute the counter offer to the good faith offer of just compensation as presented.
Thank you.
I support.
Support.
Okay. Any questions, observations? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes as well. Thank you. Now we come to the addition of the consideration of appointment of appointment of members from our board to the Park Commission board. Commissioner Fuller brought this forward. Barb, would you like to make a motion at this point?
Yes. Yes. Today, I'm stepping down as the Road Commission's representative member of the Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation Commission and hereby nominate Joanne McCullum to serve in that role.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second that.
Second that motion.
Okay. I can only have 1 second for purposes of the
I
record.
apologize. I'll defer
Not a
to-
problem. Actually, I was going to say Commissioner Green was the first person that seconded that motion, so I think the record should indicate that Commissioner Green seconded that motion. So with that, is there discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
I'm delighted to nominate Commissioner McCullum, and she has very graciously accepted the offer. She currently serves on the new West Willow Neighborhood Association Executive Board as its president and has been on the board for 6 years. She's also on the Washtenaw Community Action Board, the Ypsilanti Community Beautification Committee, the Ypsilanti Area Community Advisory Board, Community Voices for Health Equity Committee, Finance Empowerment Center Advisory Board, Habitat for Humanity of Huron Valley Board as an advisor, and she's an elected official chairperson. I feel very strongly that voices from the eastern side of the county who have authentic and real experience there will be a great contribution to the Park Commission, and I am grateful for her willingness to serve in this role.
Thank you. Are there further comments?
I'd like to simply add, I think that's a great choice, and I thank Commissioner McCullum for agreeing to serve in that capacity.
I'd just like to say congratulations, Joanne, and thank you for stepping up.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone for considering me for this position. I am very excited about it, and I will do my best in that role. Thank you.
With that, and I will add my comment only that I think everything that everyone else has said is absolutely true. And I also would like to thank Joanne for accepting that responsibility. So with that, we need to have a vote. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCullum,
Yes.
Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes as well. So we now have a new appointment to the Parks Commission, and I'm sure the managing director will generate the necessary paperwork so the Parks Commission knows that they now have a new member.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the report section of our agenda. We have, I believe, one county commissioner at least with us. Are any of the county commissioners that are present like to make any comments?
Commissioner Jamnik, you can unmute if you want to. We also have Commissioner Schenk, so I'll unmute Commissioner Jamnik first.
Nope, I'm fine, thank you.
Commissioner Schenk, you should be able to, there you go.
Good afternoon. I wasn't going to have a report, but because Commissioner Fuller has resigned from the Parks and Recreation Commission, I will say, Commissioner Fuller, that I have enjoyed working with you on the Parks and Recreation Commission, and I appreciate your service there. And to Commissioner McCullum, I say welcome to the Parks and Recreation. And I am the board liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission, and so I look forward to working with you. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, Cheryl, would you like to present the staff reports, please?
I can. Did you want to do road commissioner reports first?
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, indeed, I would. And we'll start with Commissioner Barb Fuller.
No report, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Green.
Yes, I'd just like to indicate that since our last meeting, We did meet with the Roads Funding Subcommittee, and we continue our efforts to educate the public. I think that the meeting went well, and I believe that we'll meet again in August. So it was a good meeting.
August before or after the election?
Before the election.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Yamas.
So I would like to say that I met on, I'm looking at the wrong report. I have met with 2 of the administrators, to which I was Brent Shellac, Assistant Director of Traffic and Safety, and I want to thank him. That was a great meeting on 6/24 along with Joanne, and 6:30 with Jim Harmon, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It was supposed to be a 1-hour meeting. It turned into a 2-hour meeting, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you. It was so very informative. I enjoyed that. So that's all I have. And I have been riding around. I am very impressed by the progress of the project road work on Carpenter Road and Ellsworth. It has moved along quite quickly. You know, I was anticipating it was going to drag on till August and maybe it would fix, but it looks great. And some of the other work on State Street. So thank you for that hard work. That's all I have.
Thank you. Joanne?
Yes, on June 28th, I watched the roads and non-motorized millage renewal public meeting, which I found very interesting and informative. And I suggest that if anyone hasn't seen it yet, if you have time, you can find it on the site and take a look and see how things are progressing and also what's in the future for that. So thank you.
Cheryl, thank you for catching that. Now we'll move to staff reports.
All right. Well, continuing on with the theme of the millage, staff has continued to work closely on the education with other communities on the educational effort. I did have the opportunity last night to present to the Saline City Council. Just shared with them again, very similar to the public meeting that Commissioner McCollum had the opportunity to watch the other day. And got a lot of really good questions from their city council. So that was a nice opportunity to educate them a little bit more about the millage. We do have our second and final virtual public meeting for the general public, and that will be on July 14th. I believe it's at 6:30 in the evening. It will continue to be the virtual format, so we'll be using Zoom for that as well. And to see if a different time, if we have a few more people that are able, or at least different people able to attend that meeting. So we look forward to sharing additional information at that point in time. The other piece of information that I have before I'll turn it over to staff is that we did reopen our lobby by appointment only, and that was effective yesterday. We have bins that are sitting out front. We did find that during the brief rain shower that we got yesterday, they're waterproof, which is a good thing. But that we have for pick up and drop off options for people to be able to readily be able to do that without necessarily having to have that face-to-face interaction. In addition, the public, anybody from the public can call and set up an appointment, and then that would be facilitated by staff, and we have a whole protocol that we set up for staff with that. To the best of my knowledge, no one's taken us up on that offer yet, but we are continuing to increase our services available to the public. Of course, we do continue with our online services as well, and I think we've been able to do a phenomenal amount of business electronically and intend to continue that practice as well. So unless you have any questions for me, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over first to Dan. He's got some good news, bad news on the Michigan Transportation Funds, and then also he can explain the Public Act 202 submittals, copies of which were included for you in your board packets. So Dan?
Well, if everybody could turn to page 87 of the board packet. And that shows the Michigan Transportation Fund's monthly receipts. And we want to look at our May 2020 Michigan Transportation Funds compared to May of 2019, down 31%. So I was glad I was sitting down when I saw it. Certainly timing is everything, and that's why we shared on page 88 kind of the timing of the Michigan Transportation Fund receipts. In particular, the gas tax. It takes a few months in order to process everything. So really, you're seeing the April gas tax collections part of those May numbers. So that's why they're so low, because April was the first full entire month of the stay home, stay safe. Down 31%. That's kind of in line with what I was expecting. So for year to date, we're down about 4.5. And if the MTF held for the rest of the year, we'd be at 28,200,000. If you recall, in the first quarter, we did reduce our Michigan Transportation Funds to 28 million. So, you know, while I wasn't glad to see the 31% reduction, I still feel okay as far as where we are. MDOT did provide some MTF projections by county, and they are still at about 29.2, which I think is a little optimistic, and certainly, you know, we try and be somewhat conservative. So I do feel okay with our numbers. Certainly in a couple of weeks, we'll have our second quarter budget review. Staff will talk to see if we need to make a further reduction with our transportation funds. But you know, right now I feel like everything's kind of in line with our budget. So any questions on that at all?
I have at least one.
Okay.
Have you had any conversations with other road commission finance people about the reductions in their circumstances?
Yes, so the County Road Association has a listserv, and it's a really nice tool because all the finance folks from around the state can ask a question at any time and collaborate. And certainly when the significance of the reduction was received, when those numbers were received by the other road commissions, there was a lot of activity. Certainly everybody experienced a similar decrease in the May receipts. Most felt, again, that they had adjusted their budgets. Some are going to adjust them further. But again, no one was ready to panic at this point. You know, we'll see what the next few months show. So, you know, after the shock of the May numbers, you know, when you can look at it objectively, you know, everybody is feeling somewhat okay. But like I said, only time will tell on it.
Do you think other agencies are receiving essentially the same 31%, or is that number varying from 25 to 40 or something?
It's surprising how consistent it is. I would say anywhere from 30 to 35%. There's a pretty narrow window that I've seen with the other road commissions, because a lot of them will just share what their percentage of decrease is, and it's all pretty consistent across the board.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I have one question.
Sure.
Do you have any idea when we might know the impact of the marijuana tax on road funding?
I do not, although the second page here, page 88, does refer to the marijuana tax. And as it says, and this is from the County Road Association, no one knows the lag time as far as the collections and when we receive it, or what the growth line looks like. You know, I did hear that there was some growth expected with that, but I don't have any details unless Cheryl, have you heard anything?
No, other than the general statement you just said, gas sales went down, marijuana sales went
up.
That's what I've heard. But how much and what that impact truly would be for us, I don't think we know yet.
Yeah. Any other questions on the Michigan Transportation Funds? Okay, if we can go to page 90. So page 90 is the state's reform, Public Act 202. It started in 2017. All municipalities in the state of Michigan are required to report on their OPEB, other post-employment benefits, primarily retiree health insurance, and pension costs. And the state is disseminating all this information, determining if, by their criteria, if we are underfunded or funded. And if we are underfunded, then we have to ask for a waiver with an action plan, which we've had to do for a couple years now. So first, if we look at page 90, page 90 is for our OPEB, our post-employment or our retiree health insurance. You'll want to focus on line number 6, which is our funded ratio, and that's 52.6. So 52.6, the criteria they use at the bottom is funded, if we are greater than 40% funded for our OPEB, then we are considered fine as far as their criteria. And obviously we are at 52.6%. So just as a reminder, we started a trust through MERS for funds for our OPEB. And we started that. It was never a funding requirement, but this board several years ago decided it was important enough to start funding this. And obviously it's paying off, at least this report, because we are considered fine as far as our OPEB. So I don't know if there's any questions on that page.
So Dan, I'd just like to point out 2 years ago, we were still underfunded on this. So it's kind of nice to have crossed that threshold, which we did last year. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct. Yep. So I don't anticipate anything further that we will need to do for the state of Michigan for this year for our OPEB. If there's no questions, if we can go to page 91, that's related to our pension. So per the state of Michigan, they want to see municipalities greater than 60% funded. So again, if we look at line 6, we're at 51.7% funded, which unfortunately, if you look at line 30, says, yes, we are considered underfunded per the state of Michigan. So again, I fully anticipate that we will have to ask for a waiver with an action plan. And this is similar to the previous couple of years. The state of Michigan has accepted our waivers for the last few years. Certainly, we feel we're doing all we can as an agency to address funding levels with our pension. Some of it is the MERS is who has our pension. They are continually looking at all the information as far as mortality rates, which continue to increase. They're looking at the rate of return that our funds are earning, and unfortunately have had to reduce that a little bit to 7.25%. It used to be 8% for probably 20 years or so. But there's a lot of pressure on pension organizations to really refine the rate of return that we're using. But as that rate of return decreases, then that means our funding level, it adversely impacts our funding level. As a reminder, we made a change for employees that were hired as of 1/1/12. We changed the benefit levels for them. We are also putting an additional amount when we can towards our pension to try to address the unfunded amount. We've reached out to MERS, who runs our pension, Plant Moran, who is our auditors, and they feel some of the actions that we've taken are appropriate as far as trying to address this need. Unfortunately, something like our pension, which you can see the liabilities are about $69 million. It's a marathon and not a sprint. And, you know, I support all the actions that we're taking as an agency. And certainly this challenge isn't unique to the Washtenaw County Road Commission. I think, you know, most government agencies are struggling to get a handle on this. So I don't know if there's any other additional questions, or Cheryl, if you'd like to add anything.
Dan, would you mind just also sharing the difference between being a primary unit of government and a non-primary unit of government? Because if I understand this correctly, by being a non-primary unit of government, that actually works against us in this scenario. We may be considered properly funded, at least at this point in time, had we been a primary unit of government.
Right. So in our case, we are considered non-primary. The primary unit for our county is Washtenaw County. We are considered a component unit of Washtenaw County. So therefore, when you look at line 30, the triggers for Washtenaw County, for instance, less than 60% funded, which is similar to us as non-primary, and greater than 10% of the ADC, which is, if you look at line number 9, divided by your governmental fund revenues. So basically, if we were greater than that 10%, which actually we're at 3.6%, so we would positively meet that criteria, but we are considered a non-primary unit. So therefore, the state of Michigan feels they cannot use that as a trigger. And I think a lot of it is also due to our funding source with the Michigan Transportation Fund. Certainly the Washtenaw County has a different funding source for their property taxes. So, that's unfortunate that they use different criteria, but I think the primary reason for that is the different funding sources.
Do we face any financial penalty for being underfunded?
We do not. So again, I fully expect that we'll have to submit a waiver, which we would share with the board, and an action plan. So there are two things that can happen at that point. Either the state of Michigan can accept that, which they have done for the past couple of years for us. If they do not accept it, then there's a smaller committee that reviews the road commission's, in this case, our pension policy, and they would maybe make recommendations on our behalf, or they would really dig in to try to assist us with getting on a proper path in their opinion. So as far as financially, I've not heard of any penalties or that they would get a portion of our Michigan transportation funds. It's more, it would go to a higher level with the state of Michigan, and they would try to assist us in getting us to a proper funded level.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? So certainly, when we are asked to submit a waiver, that's something that we'll go over with this board. We'll go over our action plan, which will probably be in another month or two. We're very familiar with the process. We want to make sure that we are following everything the state of Michigan wants us to follow. And I don't foresee any problems. I do know that when the state of Michigan is looking at waivers, they also are going to take into account COVID and what that has done to all municipalities. Obviously, it impacted us. You just saw our Michigan Transportation Funds. It's impacting cities, villages, counties. And so I've been told that the state of Michigan will also take that into account when determining if they're going to approve waivers or not. And besides that, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be looking at the second quarter budget. I'll be scheduling meetings with our leadership team to not only look at the second quarter of 2020, we're also going to have some estimates for 2021 and 2022. We'll get out our crystal ball and kind of see where we think we'll be at with those out years to determine if we have to make any changes now or what our programming is going to look like in the next couple of years. So I don't know if there's any other questions for me.
There's an observation. I'd like to propose that we consider having some meetings, and partly this is to ensure that our new commissioners have every opportunity to gain knowledge as quickly as possible, but also could easily be a good review for existing commissioners or older commissioners. I'd like to propose that we consider having a 2-hour meeting, and that's set aside the time for 2 hours, with the finance director and our 2 new commissioners and other commissioners as might like to attend, to cover, generally speaking, the topic of how we determine how we pay our bills, what bills need to be paid, and the procedure to ensure that our vendors are paid in a timely manner. That could encompass, for example, the relatively recent and expanding method of paying our vendors electronically, which is a whole new concept for road commissions, as well as a great many individuals. So I'd like us to consider that. If there's interest on the part of new commissioners and old commissioners or older commissioners, I'd like to, of course, that would be arranged through the Office of the Managing Director. And please let her know if you have interest in such a thing happening. Probably not in the next couple of weeks, but I would envision a presentation by the finance director and question and answers as that presentation went along. So that's can be done offline. If you have interest, please contact Cheryl, and we'll see if we can't make some arrangements for that. Cheryl?
Thank you. I will turn it over to Jim briefly, and then we'll end today with Matt and Brent. So Jim, you want to bring us up to date in operations?
Thanks, Cheryl. Good afternoon, everybody. Staff report for Operations Department for this last period is in your packet, page 77 through 83. It's been a very productive, very busy period of time in spite of the holiday. And the temperatures are, to highlight a few things, our fog sealing efforts, which is a final part of our seal coating of our asphalt collector roads throughout the county. Fog sealing is rapidly approaching conclusion for the first phase of our seal coating program. In fact, our crew is in front of the main yard on Zeeb Road as we speak, spraying the northbound outside lane of Zeeb Road, effectively working on the section of Zeeb Road between the end of the concrete down by Linda's Pancake House restaurant up to the and through the Scioto Township driveway approach. So we're trying to get this multi-lane section done today. If we are unable to do so, we'll regroup probably tomorrow and continue our efforts. Next Monday, weather permitting, it's our intention to get started on phases 2 and 3 of our seal coat program. Approximately 50 some odd miles in the west half of the county. So that's in the Chelsea district and Manchester district. And that'll take a couple of weeks to complete that. And then probably resuming fog sealing again. So period of time with chip sealing. Then part of the crew returns the state trunk line maintenance and other areas. And we use a smaller crew to do the fog sealing as, again, the final part of that two-step process on our asphalt preventive maintenance program. Countywide, a lot of drainage is going on local roads under partnership with our various townships. So ditching, roadside berm removal, limestone resurfacing was completed today. As a matter of fact, a lot of tonnage went down in Scioto Township under our contract with them. And we'll be moving here shortly with your approval today under consent. We'll be moving up to Huron River Drive between Territorial and Walsh Road to perform that limestone resurfacing in partnership with Dexter and Webster Township. Hot mix asphalt resurfacing, our countywide program continues. We're working milling and resurfacing a few cul-de-sacs in Pittsfield Township under contract with that community. We had a paved approach complete on Garvey Road at Pierce, on the west side of Pierce Road, under contract with Sylvan Township, and a lot of preparations going on right now for the state road improvements between Ellsworth and Old State. As you may recall, we have that's a county millage funded resurfacing project, and we're under partnership with Pittsfield Township to widen the center portion from Textile to Morgan Road as part of that, to put a 3-lane section through there, and a lot of preparation for that. Since the question may come up, we're anticipating the contractor putting out portable changeable message boards the week of the 20th, and we're tentatively scheduled to get underway with that project at the end of this month, the week of the 27th. And then that'll continue into mid-August. probably wrapping up toward the end of that month. And then finally, state trunk line maintenance, our contract with MDOT, that work continues. Out of guardrail repair and removing debris and various maintenance operations on the trunk line system. And just a strong compliment to our shop and our team of mechanics under Mike Livesey's leadership, our stock room. They're keeping us rolling. We do experience equipment breakdowns, especially with the heat, and they are prompt in their service and repairs and keeping this organization moving so it can accomplish its important work. Last but not least, our buildings and grounds crew under Hugo Cardenas's leadership, doing a lot of property and facilities work, contracted and direct force. A significant project that's been pending that Hugo will be administering is the removal and replacement of our failing trench drain in the middle of our main yard parking garage. The wrought iron is rotting away. You can't get the grates out to perform maintenance to clean the drain out. And Hugo is advancing a maintenance project to repair that. It's becoming a bit of a trip hazard as well. So kudos to Hugo and his team for all of the work that they're doing on our behalf, especially keeping the air conditioning systems going for those that have to be in the offices, maintaining some comfort in our office environment. With that, I'd answer any questions the board may have.
Jim, can you speak please to the concern that Cheryl had mentioned in one of her emails to us about the drivers on the road putting our workers at risk? Can you describe what's going on out there, and is there anything we can do to make our people safer?
Thank you for the question. We had two recent instances where errant motorists driving too fast, not driving in a speed to allow for clear distance to come to a stop and avoid collision. One crashed into one of our brooms that we use for our chip sealing operations, and another crashed into the rear tire of one of our heavy trucks. No one was injured. Could have been bad, but really it was the result of a lack of attention by the other motorists, paying attention, allowing clear distance to observe us in the road, performing an important function, and end up sideswiping, rear-ending us, colliding with us. This happens from time to time, and we constantly counseling our workforce to be vigilant, be always aware of the environment. Many times we have people on the road, working in the road, so reminding everyone to wear their PPE, their high visibility vests, making sure their strobe lights are on. If we're working in a work zone where we have to have advanced warning signs, those are up and visible. And this is just a constant effort on our part to try to minimize that risk. The challenge is we're subject to the motorists and whether or not they're being mindful, driving appropriately, lawfully, having their vehicle under control and driving at appropriate speeds, especially within work zones. So some near misses, property damage only, and we're continuing to practice vigilance as we're performing our operations in the field.
Were the drivers ticketed? Were they cited for their carelessness?
I don't have the final crash reports yet, Commissioner Fuller, so I don't know that. I know that the preliminary reports did find hazard action by the other motorists. I'm uncertain if they were cited or not.
I'd like to know. I'd like to know.
Sure. I'd be happy to follow up with you. There's commonly a lag in the officer completing all that paperwork and getting it posted and getting it back to us.
Okay.
Yep.
Jim, I'm assuming sometimes putting orange cones around the work area is not practicable. Is that right?
Now, I'm sorry, I missed that last part. I didn't understand your question.
I was asking whether putting orange cones around the work areas for the workers, is that always practical or sometimes not so?
It is practical in many cases. In fact, as an example, right now, as you're holding this meeting, staff have cones channelizing traffic and regulating traffic in front of the main yard administration building on Zeeb Road. As an example, a very effective and appropriate traffic control measure to help guide motorists and ensure they're in the right lane. It helps narrow things down and tends to result in reduced speeds in the work zone. So yes, Commissioner, there are many instances where the use of cones, barrels, barricades are absolutely appropriate. As another example where it wouldn't make sense is where we're grading a gravel road in the process of brining it for dust control. That's a mobile operation, that's a special operation. Cones would not make sense. We may have advanced warning signs on both ends of the road segment we're working on, but in that case, cones wouldn't be a useful or practicable traffic control solution. So it depends.
And Jim, in both of these particular situations, our vehicle was moving. Isn't that a correct statement? So the use of cones would not have been appropriate under these circumstances.
That's true. The broom had just come to a stop, was considering making a left turn, but pulled off to the right to the shoulder and was partially on the road. The other motorist didn't notice our broom with its lights going and clipped the back corner of the broom and broke the broom, actually. Property damage only. Motorists, it resulted in a lot of damage on the passenger side of their vehicle. But that'd be a case where a cone wouldn't have made sense. Our operator was about to continue onto our chip seal operation that morning. So.
Okay, Jim, had some concerns for the workers on Carpenter Road also because the traffic seemed to be a bit out of control. I remember kind of slowing people down and watching people trying to put the cones out. The workers had all the reflective gear, but I had some of the same concerns and didn't know if signage would be appropriate about reducing speed limits in those, because that's normally a 45 and people are usually doing 55. If signage about, does the speed limit not change down to 25? I didn't know it should slow down while workers are around or not, but I did have some concern for the workers that I seen trying to move. They were moving cones that were already out, but I did wonder that about the safety of the workers.
I've been through that work zone. There is no shortage of traffic control devices on that job, and for good reason. Tremendous amount of advance warning notifications to the motorists as they enter the project from any direction. The barrels, the cones, the signs, all those devices are there to caution, forewarn, to channelize, to direct. In that case, that's a contractor performing that work on our behalf, concerned for their safety as much as our own. That contractor taking great strides to ensure the safety of that work zone for the workforce and also for the motorists and non-motorists that have to traverse that location. The law includes rather severe penalties, should the prosecutor wish to pursue those penalties for folks that violate the law, drive too fast, recklessly, disobey traffic control devices, even if they're construction traffic control devices in work zones. The problem that we see is motorists get impatient. They can become aggressive, distracted by smartphones and other technology in the vehicles, is simply not paying attention. And it can put everyone at risk. So again, constant vigilance is necessary. What we do can be quite hazardous.
It's also not uncommon if we have a construction project that is going, where we maintain traffic that is going to be of a longer duration, similar to Carpenter Road. We frequently, staff will come to this board and ask that a temporary construction speed limit be established Often we won't drop it more than 10 miles an hour below the posted speed limit, just because then you do often have compliance issues, unless there's something sort of unique about the construction zone where we would need it to go lower than that. But that is not uncommon that we would come and ask for that temporary construction speed limit. It's typically for the duration of the construction project. Specifically in Pittsfield Township, they have their police, their public safety department has been very cooperative with us on road projects. And so if we start seeing non-compliance speed limits or traffic control devices or anything that is problematic, Pittsfield Township is frequently quick to respond and to assist us on those types of projects. The Sheriff's Department does as well in some of the other areas, but Pittsfield actually has been a very good partner. I don't know, Matt, if you want to add to that.
No, you covered it very well. I will add on certain corridors when we limit like one lane each direction, similar to Carpenter Road, just based on the volume of traffic, they're relegated to driving much lower speeds than even 10 miles an hour slower during the peak period. So there's a lot of congestion that certainly slows folks down. But ultimately there are alternate routes, and we do pay our contractors a lot to install a lot of traffic control devices, even though they may not be observed or adhered to. They are out there for the safety of the workers and for our own staff.
I certainly have observed them. I also have certainly seen cones that have been run over and demolished and like kicked off to the side, and it's just concerning. I appreciate all that.
Matt, would you like to continue to share on the engineering side of things? And then we'll turn it over to Brent and he can talk about the safety program applications.
Certainly. We've got a lot of things underway. Much of was done in my absence. I'm back from vacation, so forgive me if I am not up on all the current details for our first day back in the office. But Brent and Aaron and all of our staff did a great job of overseeing the work. As you indicated, Commissioner, Carpenter Road is getting substantially complete. There's some rain garden details that are certainly going to get wrapped up here soon. Textile woodland in the city of Saline and Pittsfield Township is underway. Underground work is nearing completion, meaning the storm sewer. Pavement removals are all done, and they'll be looking to lay the groundwork for the aggregate base and curb work forthcoming. Pontiac Trail in 7 miles is a similar state. It's a roundabout in Salem Township. We are slightly delayed for the Miller and Wagner roundabout and that closure. And work will begin next Monday. So we had a slight delay. AT&T is wrapping up relocation efforts. So that work is ongoing. That's the work going on site. Our contractor will arrive next Monday. A lot of paving work has taken place. Significant one was on Plymouth Road between US 23 and kind of the East Medical Center by U of M over there in Ann Arbor Township. That was a significant paving project. That paving is complete. I'm sure there's pavement marking and whatnot and punch list items to be done. And then paving efforts are ongoing for US 12, old US 12 in the city of Chelsea. That work is ongoing as well. Kavanaugh Lake Road culvert, just west of the city of Chelsea, will begin tomorrow. So that's good news, and much awaited for long time for this project to get started. So that's just a brief report. I don't want to take too much time, as I want to turn it over to Brent Schlack, who's going to go over our federal safety program our program, they do grant applications, and we submitted grant applications most recently here, and he wanted to give us a presentation on that and the projects that we selected for applications. With that, I'll turn it over to Brent, and Emily is going to help us present, I think.
Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Cheryl and the board for allowing me to present and share the program that we've been very successful with. So I'll share the presentation. Hopefully this comes through. Everybody see it?
Yep.
Hopefully. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm Brent Schlack. I'm the Assistant Director of Engineering, and my staff, we oversee the applications to the Federal Local Safety Program. Hopefully it got a little lag, sorry there. So what is the safety program? It's a reactive program. Unfortunately, it's reactive where we're reacting to crashes that are happening on our roadways. There's a certain portion of the program, which I'll go into the different parts. So the highway safety program just requires that you have a crash history, and they score those based on the severity of those crashes. High-risk rural road program does require that you have a fatality or a very serious injury crash in order for you to qualify for those fundings. So like I have in the slide, it's broken into the three parts. There's the Highway Safety Improvement Program, and then a leg of that Highway and Safety Improvement Program, there is the Systemic Program, and then the High Risk Railroad Program. It's all one pot of money, and I'll show you that here in a minute, but it's all one pot of money, and it's broken up into these three areas. So eligibility, any Act 51 agencies are eligible. That includes all the 83 counties and the cities and certain incorporated villages are eligible for this for these funds. As far as roads, it has to be any non-MDOT road. So regardless of the classification of the road or the amount of traffic on the road, it's eligible to receive these funds. It's broken up, the Highway Safety Improvement Program is broken up into, it's $15 million, and high-risk railroad funds are broken up, have $6 million, and the Highway Safety Improvement Program gets $9 million of the funds. So first, the high-risk railroad program. So the eligible roads must be a rural in nature. It can't be a boundary of any of the urban road. And they can be collector or local roads. So those are the ones. And like I said earlier, they have to have one or more fatalities or serious injury crashes. And when we say a type A crash, serious injury crashes are labeled based on, they start with the alphabet. So an A injury is very serious. Then we have a B and a C. A C injury would be like bumps and bruises. A B would maybe be like a broken arm. So the Highway Safety Improvement Program, the $9 million is broken up into two segments. The systemic, and I'll go into that a little bit here in a minute, and then just general highway safety improvement funds. I don't know if I said that earlier, but these are statewide funds, so we are competing statewide for these funds. I guess I do kind of go into, so the systemic, there's specific work types, and it's reduced submittal, so it's less work for us to put the application together for a systemic type treatment. Those would include like centerline rumbles, pavement marking, things like that. Maximum awards. So each agency, we are allowed $2 million, and those can be broken up in any three of those options. Of course, each project, like it has for the Highway Safety Improvement Program, it's capped. So each project has a maximum of $600,000, but we can submit unlimited applications. High-risk rural roads, again, those are capped at $600,000 per project and have unlimited. And then the systemic, it's a $200,000 cap, but we can only submit 3 applications. I don't know if you can see this map. It might be kind of tiny on your screen, but all of these locations dating back to 2009 are the locations that we received safety funds. I was trying to put together the cost, but since 2009, but it is a very large number. I would say a few $1 million, probably more than that, over $5 million maybe. I don't know if that we've received in safety funds. And I can supply this map if anybody is interested, but this is just kind of a quick glance of all the safety funds that we've received. So I'll just go through a few awarded projects just to give you kind of a feel for some of the projects that we received funds. And then I'll go through the applications that we applied for, and what we applied for was fiscal year 2022 funds. So one of the projects that we had was Ridge and Hack. We completed this project last fall. We improved the super elevation of the roadway. We widened the paved shoulder, and we paved the shoulder. We applied a high friction surface along the curve, and we installed centerline and shoulder rumbles through the curve. And then also we paved some of the gravel approaches, which sometimes those gravel approaches can get gravel onto the main line and cause some issues for vehicles. I'll show you a picture of it. Hopefully everybody can see that. So you can see this is a very successful project. Let me see. So it was $328,000 that we received for this project. So we put curb and gutter along some of the side roads. This used to be a Y intersection. So it used to have 2 roads that would approach Ridge Road, and we combine those roadways into one approach. And typically you want that at a 90-degree angle to the major road. And that's what we did on this one. And then of course we put the high friction surface, this is a very good program, and it turned out to be a really nice project. The other project, which is happening right now, is Textile and Woodland. This was a safety application as well. And it's to construct a single lane roundabout. We did this in joint with the city of Saline, and the funding that we were awarded is just $506,000 we were awarded for that project. And then here's kind of a schematic of the improvement that will go in. Another project that we was awarded was Hewitt between Burns and Harding and Ypsilanti. This, we're going to construct a mid-block pedestrian crossing. This is out for bid right now. It's being advertised, and this will be constructed next spring. We received $292,000 for this improvement. And here's one of the pages of the plans. You can see the mid-block, which is just north of Harding. And then there is an existing island that is at Burns, but working with the community, people didn't feel as comfortable crossing there. And so we found a location that had good sight lines and the community was comfortable with. So that's the one just north of Harding. And then this is an example. This is actually on Plymouth Road in the city of Ann Arbor. So this is the treatment that will be placed at along Hewitt Road. Our project won't have 2 mast arms. We're actually going to have one, and it'll have a really long arm, and it'll still have the crosswalk sign in the middle of the road with 2 of the overhead flashing beacons. So that was Hewitt between Burns and Harding. So now,
Brent, I have a question.
yeah,
Brent, can you back up to there, please? So the overhead signage, will there be illumination on the zebra on the road surface, or is it just overhead signage?
so we will have overhead illumination on that'll be included with the crosswalk sign. There'll be a downlight on the crosswalk sign, and we'll have a luminaire that will come off of one of the mast arm standards, the upright poles.
Okay. I think those are so important at dusk or at night or at dawn. So I'm glad to know the full treatment is being applied.
Yeah, that's actually it's a very good treatment. One that is overlooked a lot of times is illumination. So jumping into our applications for fiscal year 2022, we applied for Pleasant Lake Road in Freedom Township. This was our high-risk rural road project, and I'll give you the limits, and I'll go through each one of these. Dexter Pinckney Road in Dexter Township, North Territorial Road in Webster Township, and the intersection of Carpenter and Bemis, which borders both Pittsfield and York. So Pleasant Lake Road, it's between Schneider and Parker. So we are proposing to enhance the curve signage along this segment, put overhead flashing beacon at Schneider and at Parker Roads, and apply the high friction surface within the curves on Pleasant Lake Road. Our estimated cost is $655,000. The volume of vehicles on this segment is right around 6,000 vehicles. And we've had some crash history along this segment as far as people leaving the roadway, which is pretty much a lot of our issues throughout the county are people lane departure. And in this segment, obviously it would be within those curves is where we've seen some of those issues, people leaving the roadway. The next roadway is Dexter Pinckney Road. That's in Dexter Township. That's between Island Lake and the county line. What we're proposing here is, again, enhanced curve signing and pavement markings, center line rumbles, a box span traffic signal. So right now at North Territorial, right now at that intersection, it has a diagonal span, which limits us on the future treatments for those left turns. If we needed left turn protection at those intersections, we can't do that with a diagonal span due to the height requirement for those signal heads. So we're going to propose that at that intersection, and then spot drainage improvements along Dexter Pinckney Road, which we use our drain map, and we work with our operations department on determining locations where we can replace culverts, improve some of our drainage along the roadway. We estimated this cost around $663,000, $64,000. The volume of traffic on this roadway is right around between 9,500 to 11,000 vehicles. And we have experienced some crash history again along this roadway. We've had a one head-on, and that's some of the reason for the centerline rumbles is due to that head-on crash on Dexter Pinckney.
Brent, there's a question I have.
Yeah.
On Dexter Pinckney Road. We have continued concern on the part of the citizens, Dexter principally, about trucks arriving at the railroad viaduct and either hitting it or stopping short of hitting it and then blocking traffic while they try and extricate themselves. While we're thinking about that roadway, could we also consider some more aggressive measures to warn trucks far enough out. I'm particularly concerned with trucks southbound on Dexter Pinckney towards Island Lake Road. Once they pass Wiley, they really get committed. So I'm wondering if we could take a look at more aggressive actions to warn truckers that they're about to drive off the edge, as it were.
Sure. Yeah, the signage can get upgraded. Now, as far as any type of enhanced type technology to help with that, we did not include that within our project. But as far as signage, and there's some we can look to improve that signage, which hopefully would help.
I have a comment. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Doug, were you done?
Sure.
Okay. Is there lighting like in the hot spots, like where that head-on was? Is that a consideration if there's not lighting?
No, we don't. We did not consider lighting. It's a tricky issue with lighting, especially in some of those rural areas. People, a lot of times the community doesn't like the light pollution from those. And that's why we try to enhance the pavement marking, put those centerline rumbles. We try to do other treatments that aren't as, don't cause as much issues with the community. So no, and on this segment, we do not have any lighting included.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. North Territorial Road, this segment is between Mast and Webster Church Road. The enhanced, what we're proposing is to enhance the curve signing along North Territorial Road, centerline rumbles, center left turn lane we're proposing at Webster Church Road, and then spot drainage improvements. North Territorial Road is probably our worst crash road as far as rural crashes, as far as people leaving the roadway for lane departure. So the centerline rumbles definitely will help along this segment. We showed a volume of traffic right around 8,500 to 9,000 vehicles in this segment. We also performed it's called an LSI, a local safety initiative with MDOT. MDOT, that's where MDOT evaluates our county and they look for hot spots throughout the county and then they recommend improvements. And so we met with MDOT, we drive all these segments that they come up with, and this segment was actually part of that local safety initiative. So the estimated cost for this project was $652,000. The last one that we're looking at is Carpenter Road, Carpenter at Bemis. It's on the border of Pittsfield and York, and we are proposing a box span traffic signal at this location, and the cost for that would be we estimated at about $550,000. It does meet warrants for a traffic signal today, and it's currently a multi-way stop. The volume of traffic on Carpenter Road at this segment is anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000 vehicles. On Bemis, we see about 5,000 vehicles on the paved section and about 1,500 on the gravel segment. So with that, yes, sir.
Another question. How many of these proposed intersection improvements have also been costed out installing a small roundabout?
This was the only intersection that we looked to apply for based on crash history. And the reason we chose a box span traffic signal was due to the turn lanes that exist there today. So it took little extra pavement to improve the intersection.
Understood.
So there weren't any other locations that met the crash requirement as far as an intersection, and the severity of those crashes that would be a good candidate for this type of funding.
Okay, thank you.
I have questions about the Pleasant Lake, the first one that you showed us, the Pleasant Lake curves.
Sure.
Do you have rumbles? You don't have rumbles in this plan.
We do not have rumbles in this plan.
Why not?
It was a treatment that we didn't feel was necessary based on the crashes that we were seeing. They were mainly at the curves. And so when you run it through the application, each one of those has a crash reduction factor, and based on the crash, and that's based on the crashes that we're seeing. And we couldn't use that reduction factor to help with any of the crashes that we were seeing. So it wasn't a benefit. That doesn't mean that we couldn't look to put those in. We just didn't apply for that part of the application.
It's common, particularly on the one to the east, the easternmost one, because the one further west is wider because of the gravel truck lanes or the widened spots there. But on the one to the east, people frequently come across that center line, particularly when they're westbound, because they're coming south on Parker and they come into that curve too fast and they swing really wide. Rumbles would be great there. I know there's a house there, so I thought maybe there was an objection to the noise of them, but I think they would be, they'd have utility on that curve in particular to keep people on the correct side of that center line, and then sliding off of those in the winter. Oftentimes the road surface becomes, you're uncertain where the road is because of the snow, and the rumble strips would be very helpful in those circumstances as well. So just a thought, if there's a way to incorporate those as long as the work is being done there, I would highly recommend considering it.
Okay, yeah, I can write that down, and as we're designing it, if it can get included, we certainly can look at that. We'd have to do some community outreach and make sure that the community accepts those, but that area might be a good application for it.
I'd like to build on one of the things that Brent was just saying. Brent and Elena, Yadikina, who works with Brent, the two of them over time, and I think the one map shows, they've developed quite the track record when it comes to the safety grant applications and their success rate. And they're very strategic on the types of improvements that they're going after, what is likely to be funded, and ultimately what you get to is there's a benefit cost ratio involved in that. And so you need to look at, is the type of crash is it correctable? Not to say, and crashes are bad. We'd like to get rid of all crashes if we can, but are they correctable with the type of improvement that we're putting in? And then what the cost of that improvement so that we get the most benefit for the lowest cost possible. And again, they've been very strategic on how they've been doing that, and have been highly successful over the years in securing safety funds. There are opportunities, just like you mentioned, Barb, where if we want to reevaluate or see if there's something additional signing, additional payment marking, something like a center rumble strip, if that makes sense in the context of the project, this would be the time to do it.
Was the signal at M52 and Pleasant Lake paid for with safety funds? Was there any help there on that project a few years ago?
Well, that was an MDOT project. So they funded that. Brent, do you know if they put safety funds towards that?
I don't believe they did. I think that just came through their general traffic signal budget.
I thought we had a piece of that because of Pleasant Lake Road, but
Originally, they wanted us to do improvements to Pleasant Lake Road.
Right.
We said we would take it into consideration in priority with the other improvements that we had countywide. Again, not to say that crashes were a good thing there, but certainly when we look at our own list and our priorities, that wasn't high for us. Again, Brent, in his dealings around the states, while MDOT initially said they couldn't do the type of phasing that you see out there today, he said, well, let me give you some examples of where you have done it and done it successfully. So they sort of reevaluated that position as well. And ultimately, we were able to come up with an improvement where the road commission, other than the ongoing maintenance, which we do have a share in, have any responsibility for construction costs in that project.
Thank you.
So with that, if anyone has any other questions, I certainly can try and, I know it's a lot to take in, and there is a lot more that goes into this, and I really have to thank Elena Yadakina. She really does a great job at putting these together.
So Brent, I don't know if you or Emily just want to mention that we have the grants page. It is on our website if anybody's interested in the different grants that we've either applied for and received funding for.
Yeah, and then it'll be updated shortly. I haven't had a chance to update and put these new applications on there, but you're right, Cheryl. It is on the wcroads.org, and you can see what we've applied for, what we've been successful at. If we haven't received the application, if we're waiting to hear back, you can see each of those for each of the next couple fiscal years.
Yep.
And
So thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Nope, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say that oftentimes we'll be asked, well, why are you fixing that? Why aren't you just going and repaving this road over here? And we just have to be aware that when we go after these grants, when we apply for them, the money that we receive has to be to solve the problem that the grant program is intended to solve. We can't just take that money and go repave Rawsonville Road, for instance. It's applied for a specific solution, and we are to execute that solution with those monies. So they are very specific. As Brent indicated, there's a lot of strings attached when we go after the grant money, including if we don't pull off the project or if we give the money back, we're penalized for a number of years when we go after those grant funds. So we just have to be aware that when we apply for these things, they're to solve a specific problem, and it's a reactionary type funding, as Brent mentioned in his initial presentation, that they are to solve or address issues that we're seeing on the existing road system. So with that, that's all we had. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask.
And safety is just one of the different grant funding sources that we do seek funds for. And as the different grant cycles come along, we'll certainly keep the board up to date on what applications staff is going to be submitting. Again, we've benefited by having the staff that is as knowledgeable as they are in the different types of funding that is out there. And they do have a pretty good track record, whether it is safety funds, congestion mitigation, air quality, or what we'll often refer to as CMAQ funds, the bridge funds. So there's different pots that are out there, and each one has its own set of criteria, its own set of strings. But they have really supplemented the traditional federal funds or our gas and registration, gas tax and registration fees. So we're proud of the work that they've been doing, and just wanted to bring you up to speed on this particular grant cycle, since we will have those applications in here shortly.
And what's the time horizon, Cheryl, on these grants? Is it 2 years, 3 years? I mean, if we apply today for something, what are we looking at for if we receive the award? How far out?
Each grant is for potentially a different time period. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is fiscal year 2022 that we are applying for.
Yeah.
These would be federal funds, so that would start in October of 2021. So what is that, 15 months from now?
Correct.
Which is actually a pretty short time period.
Yeah, I was thinking they were more like 3 years out, but.
Yeah, Barb.
Bridge is a little further out.
Yep.
We like Bridge.
And slowly, MDOT is transitioning to give us a little more time. And with all the constraints of right-of-way, endangered species, it's very difficult to program and get the funds obligated and bid out these projects in that period of time.
So unless you have any further questions for staff, that's it on our end of things.
Commissioners?
Thank you.
Okay. That is the end of the agenda. If commissioners don't have any further questions for staff, I guess I'll ask if there's anything else that any commissioner would like to bring up at this particular point in time. And if not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Support.
I didn't actually hear anybody make a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, thank you, Barb. That requires, as always, a roll call vote. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes. We are adjourned, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Bye.
great